What's up, everybody? I'm Kendall MacLean, Senior Manager of Enablement and Education here at FloQast. I am not the host of Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets, but I am the guest on today's show. Today, we dive into how public accounting leads well into the tech space, specifically here at FloQast. FloQast's outlook on bringing accountants into customer success, specifically our professional services team, and how we really invest in our implementations here at FloQast. And lastly, we spend the better half of the back of the episode really diving into the origins, purpose, and future of Flo Academy, our e-learning, training, and free CPE platform that is open to accountants worldwide. So now let's get into the latest episode of Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets. We hope you enjoy.
My name is Mike Whitmire. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FloQast. Currently an active CPA. If you've listened to me introduce myself over the years, you've probably heard inactive for a while. I had a brief stint of conflict with the California CPA Society. I was actually suspended for a minute there, had to get all my CPE credits, which we'll be talking about today. And I'm back to active. So I'm 12 months away from being inactive again when I do not stay up to date on my requirements. Anyway, that does somewhat relate to today's topic. Welcome to Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets, the podcast where we talk about accounting, business, really anything top of mind for us, what's going on in the FloQast world and the accounting world. For today, I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Kendall MacLean. Kendall has played a big role in FloQast in a variety of positions here, most recently one heavily related to CPE requirements, I think near and dear to your heart if you're probably watching this podcast. But without further ado, welcome, Kendall. Would love to just take it from the top. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Yeah, super excited to be here chatting with you today, Mike. Born and raised in California. I've been at FloQast with you now, I think almost 5 years and about a month here, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, obviously kind of played a lot of different roles at FloQast, but my time with accounting started right in college. So it was something I decided to study second year, I think. And people always ask, why accounting? First answer, it kind of came easy to me. I feel like you're a number person or you're not. And so I genuinely did really enjoy kind of the whole process of financial kind of reporting and all of that in college, but accounting really stuck out to me. Studied that, landed a job in public accounting like most of us do. Started with PwC in San Francisco. I focused in audit, specifically kind of retail customers and things like that. Loved what I learned there, invaluable skills in public accounting. Highly recommend a place to start, but it's also a great launching pad to many other careers. Was so happy that I found FloQast like I did about 5 or so years ago, and have just really appreciated the opportunities this company has given me, and have really touched a range of things here. And yeah, excited about what we're doing, especially on the CPE front, like we'll be chatting about more. But thanks for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know you're really busy and have a lot going on, so I do appreciate it.
Of course.
So from California, I love to hear that. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Cal Poly.
Cal
so,
Poly?
Like many other FloQasters, I think there's quite a few of us here.
We do.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Cal Poly alumni. There always seems to be a spirit of entrepreneurship from that school is what I found. Is that by design? Why is that?
Yeah, they have. So we actually have like an entrepreneurial program in the business kind of school, which I don't think is necessarily always a placement like in the university. And it's huge. We actually have a think tank in San Luis Obispo where like people can take their startup ideas and try to get funding as early as like your junior year. And some really cool companies have kind of blossomed from there. But yeah, there's definitely, it's all learn by doing. So people get their hands dirty very early on, no matter what you're studying. And so I think that kind of fosters that mindset. So yeah.
Okay. And then presumably, the big four out of San Francisco recruit pretty heavily from PwC.
Huge.
So was there a reason you chose PwC? Did you have options? I didn't, so I just ended up at EY. But
I mean, you're testing my decision from a while ago, but I will say the biggest thing that I think that stood out were the people, and kind of like when I chose FloQast, or when you choose many of your kind of steps in your career, how do you feel when you're surrounded by the people there? So I think I really enjoyed the culture. They have you kind of starting doing those things, internships, all those things before. So I was able to expose myself to a lot of the people that I would be working around, and remember the culture just really standing out. And kind of what we'll get into, I do also remember them always very much being on like the cutting edge of technology, and always trying to think about like how we could automate things, how we could make our audits more efficient, which is obviously what we're trying to do here at FloQast as well. But those would be probably the two things that stood out to me about PwC. Can't say any great things about them. Yeah.
That might point to why we have so many PwC alumni here. I've noticed really early on, like if you look at the big four, you would assume kind of 25% for each one, but it seems more heavily on the PwC side and then Cal Poly as well. So maybe a little, something culturally there. That's interesting to hear. I can't believe it took me that long to process all of that, but very cool. And okay, so then when you move into audit, there's joining the firm, but I think the types of clients you end up on also really informs like your knowledge and career path and everything. So tell us, you said you were in a retail space. What were the actual companies? What kind of size, scale, all that good stuff?
So my biggest client was Restoration Hardware.
Okay. Cool client.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A very cool client. And they actually were headquartered in the county that I grew up in and went to high school to. So I'd drive across the bridge kind of to my hometown every day, which was interesting. But the biggest kind of unique experience about my audit there was, for many of you probably can recall the new kind of leasing standard that was released, 842. And that greatly impacted Restoration Hardware just because of how many of their stores that they lease. And so my audit was pretty unique and difficult due to that standard being released during the time that I was there. But that was my biggest client. I did a little bit of healthcare, but a lot of retail. But that they took about 9 months out of my year.
So you got landed on kind of the bigger client. How big was the team on that one?
About 15, I would say, probably 15 people.
That's a good size. It's like enough where you have some team camaraderie, but not just like two of you.
Definitely was a close-knit team. Yeah.
And are they public or private?
They're public. Yep.
Public. Okay, so you're dealing with SOX compliance, testing, all that.
Totally.
All that good stuff.
Yep.
Were your healthcare companies also public?
No.
Did you notice a difference in the accounting operations between the two companies?
Yes. Definitely a tighter ship when they're public with all their controls and all that kind of stuff. But I would say, even Restoration Hardware, speaking of technology, was like kind of always trying to do things more efficiently. How can we improve from last year? How can we get ahead? Didn't notice that as much on my healthcare clients, maybe just because of funding and things like that as well, right? There's other factors to consider. But I would say, efficiency and kind of the ease of working with the public customer was actually, I would say, easier than with our private customers, but it could have just been my situation as well.
Well, had they, it's also so dependent on the team that's internally at the company. Had they hired former auditors as accountants?
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Like CPK, I was on that client for a couple quarters.
Yeah.
And it was so disturbing. They hired all EY people on their team. They would just hand us our audit files and like the binder and like, here you go, you can review this.
The tick marks are like already there. They're bolding them red for you. And it's a huge difference.
They're bolding them red. You're so spot on. And it's like, oh, you are the most likely to commit fraud because you know exactly how to get away with it. In some ways it's nice, but also very scary.
Yeah. That's a great call out. Yeah, definitely was the case for my public versus private. Yeah.
And ultimately, why'd you decide to leave audit?
Yeah, I just didn't see my long-term career there. I think the biggest reason was no matter how much technology or changes that, PwC was trying to implement into the audit, at the end of the day, you're doing audits year in and year out. Like the goal of your job wasn't evolving a ton. Obviously you can move up the ladder and you're a different spot in the review chain and that sort of thing. But I just didn't see that as exactly how I wanted to use my degree. But when I was looking to leave, I think there are a lot of people that go into public accounting and maybe they're a little bit scarred about the accounting field, or they're really ready to just branch out and leave. And they don't necessarily, they're not necessarily looking to maybe continue using their degree. Some go do private accounting. Some want to go to tech. I don't care if I'm going to be touching accounting. I really wanted to move to the tech space, but I did really want to use my accounting background. So that was a non-negotiable for me. I wasn't ready to leave the accounting space entirely. And so when I was approached about FloQast, it felt like it was marrying the two like so well, being able to leverage my degree, kind of that technical background, the professionalism skills that you learn in audit, but also join something fast growing and be able to be a part of kind of the tech world once and for all. So that was really important to me, was to not entirely leave accounting behind.
Fair to assume that's part of why you want to go into tech?
100%. Yeah.
And so when you first thought that, was it like, I want to go be an accountant at a tech company? Was that the starting point for it? No, you wanted to get out of accounting? Okay,
exactly.
Tell me more about that. Yeah.
So it was hard for me. I remember when I started talking to recruiters and I was ready to leave public accounting, it was kind of hard for me to verbalize exactly. They're like, okay, so you kind of want to still use your degree. You want to go to tech, but you don't really want to be a staff accountant. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, tell me more. And so I honestly had to challenge myself to kind of learn about like what roles are out there. Because again, you get your accounting degree, you go to public accounting, and you don't really have to look anywhere else. And so it was a lot of kind of like operational roles that were interesting to me, like business operations. So you still would be kind of talking to like the finance and accounting world within a company, but be a little bit more like process driven. Always been kind of a high attention to detail, love kind of process documentation, that sort of thing. So I looked at some operation type roles. There were some early like consultant type roles, but again, at companies that, unlike FloQast, weren't really selling to accounting teams. So again, I'd be like learning how to consult a tool in like the healthcare space or something else where it didn't really align with my background. So interestingly, yes, I wanted to continue using my degree to some extent, but I didn't really want to go be a staff accountant. So I'm like, how am I going to make this possible? So when the recruiter reached out to me about FloQast, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a tech company that sells accounting software. Like it never dawned on me to maybe narrow my job search, but how many young accounting software companies were out there at the time?
It narrows to a pretty small pool real quickly. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I narrowed the job search, if you will. But yeah, still so grateful we didn't have a full recruiting team at that time. So you guys were using some third-party recruiting companies.
Okay. I was going to ask who reached out to you.
Yeah, I think it was someone that worked
with,
Mm-hmm. I think Chris Sluty and Lilith at KPMG. I know she had worked with them there. But anyway, so yeah, still grateful to her for that.
Awesome. So you were looking for a role, and then we came across your email inbox, and it was a great fit?
Yes,
cool.
Exactly.
All right, so on that note, let's what did you actually do when you joined FloQast? What role did you take on, and tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So first role was in our professional services team. So as a implementation consultant. And so really what you focus on in that role, right, is learning the product really, really well, learning the pain points that our customers are having and how is FloQast going to be that best solution for them. So once the contract has been signed, right, we really get to know our customers and we understand how the best way they should implement our tool is. Our tool is very flexible. There's a lot of different ways that we can structure our tool depending on what the pain points and needs of our customers are. So you are that bridge. You are that consultant for them. And what I loved about in that initial role, similar to audit, is that you get exposure to all types of customers, right, of all sizes. We have our implementation consultants work on all customers, no matter what industry they're in. So I loved that. And I loved being able to have those direct relationships, but be an extension of their team versus, if lack of a better word, not on their team when you're in audit, right? So I loved that role. It taught me so much about the product, allowed me to continue the customer facing skills. That was something kind of going back to the job search. If you're looking to kind of continue those customer facing skills, the implementation consultant role is great for that because you're continuing to be on the front lines with our customers. And then from there, we only had about, I don't know, was it like 5, 6, 7 consultants when I started probably at that time. And FloQast, was growing like crazy. We have to hire more consultants. And so I kind of took a love to starting to document how I was almost like training myself in the role. Shannon, still here today as well, was kind of my coach and mentor through the early days, but we didn't really have any process documentation on how do you do this role? How do we bring on someone else and how are they trained in this role? So I kind of took a love to starting to develop that process for our team. And then within about 9 months or so of me starting, we definitely had a need to hire more. So I kind of took on the role of helping train them, creating documentation for them. And as I moved up into the management of that team, it was the pandemic. We're growing like crazy and we're bringing on like cohorts of 10 people at once, and so that documentation and had to kind of expand into an onboarding program, if you will, right? At a startup, you don't necessarily have clean onboarding programs for every team. It takes years to get to that point. So we finally were getting to that point. And I, vocalized to to FloQast and CS that I'd be willing to kind of take on a role that really just focused on enablement for the broader department. And so that's kind of what I transitioned to after being in that consultant type role and that management role on professional services, was focusing on enablement for the customer success team. So just making sure that people are aware of what's changing in our product, how are they going to consult our customers on that, working very cross-functionally with marketing and sales on any go-to-market motion. And then we had Flo Academy, which we'll be talking about probably quite a bit more here, but that was blossoming, which is our kind of e-learning training platform for our customers, as well as open to all accountants, both non-customers and customers, and have kind of taken that on over the last 2 years to bring it to what it is today. It's been great working with you on that, creating a lot of fun content, but that's really where we expect, our customers to be able to have a home to answer any questions that they have about the product, while also creating really unique and engaging CPE content for free for our customers as well as the public. So that's where we are today. I know we're working a lot on Flo Academy this year, and yeah, it's been a journey.
That's a fun project. I'm excited to go into that one a little bit more. I do take a little umbrage with the no processes when you started. I put some processes in place. It was like, when we're talking to a prospect, they give us a score of 1 to 5, and we decide how hard it's going to be or something like that. And then it was you get the checklist, the trial balance, and the folder structure, and you put it all together, and you put a mapping document.
It's still the foundation today. That is still the foundation today. So it was a working foundation. So I'll give you that.
2 checklist items. Yeah. 1
but
to
you
5,
have to realize,
and then
right?
Do all this.
We're hiring these accountants, and they come from a PwC or something, and your onboarding is well oiled. So when they come here, we always warn people, right? It's like, we're fast growing, processes are changing. Not everything's going to be documented super nicely for you. Obviously, we've come a long way. We do have a lot of documentation now, but especially back then, right? And so you've got these former accountants, and they're like, wait, so how am I going to learn how to do my job? And that's how we're wired at the end of the day.
Totally. It's a huge culture shock. I mean,
it is.
EY is so buttoned up, and even when I went over to Cornerstone and we had 5 people in accounting, there was nothing. I was just sitting at my desk like, what am I supposed to do now? So no, totally get it. That's why it takes a different kind of accountant to succeed in an early stage company. And you really have to have your mentality of, I'm just going to figure this out.
Yep.
I'm going to take on more work. I'm going to write it down, document it. And then what magically happens when you do that, you then get great career opportunities and get to do new things. And so not all that surprised you got promoted to the manager role. And then, management so organically feeds into enablement. Like that feels like it makes a lot of common sense. Mm-hmm.
Yep. People were kind of like, not testing me a little bit, but like, are you really ready to kind of make this career move, like move from professional services to enablement? And I was like, I kind of see it as, right now I'm managing, I think it was like 10, 12 consultants, and I'm helping those 10, 12 people. When I move into enablement, I see what I'm doing to be able to create an impact for the entire team, right? And now Flo Academy, it's like being able to impact more people with what I'm passionate about versus just kind of like the set people I'm managing in an org chart, if you will. So that's kind of how I viewed the career move a little bit, to be able to, I want to take the passion for being able to teach people, but kind of broaden the population that I can impact.
That's a fascinating way of thinking about it. You have each of your role, you've had this like multiplier effect. Yeah. Right? Like at the IC level, you were helping clients and helping their team get better. Then you moved up and helped a team of teams help teams get implemented on FloQast. And now you have the ultimate multiplier effect with Flo Academy going way broader across all of accounting. Cool. Yep. Great job, Kendall. Super impressive. Thank you. All right. How many setups did you do at FloQast before you transitioned? Ballpark, I know that's pretty detailed, but like ballpark, was it 10, 100?
I would say probably in that role for about a year and a half when you're doing like 5 to 10 a month. Let's call it like over 100, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you being
between 100 and 150.
I remember you being pretty busy. It's
the
tough one where you give your best people all the work, unfortunately. But for me, one of the pitches for and we call this role the ATC, Accounting Technology Consultant. One of my pitches was you got to put your accounting knowledge to work. Yep. You got to have the client relationship side of audit, which if you liked working with the people, that's great. And then, instead of auditing them, you're helping them. You're trying to make them better and make their lives a little bit easier rather than, audit by nature, you're making people's jobs a little more difficult in that time. So Awesome. And you got a variety of industries. Were there any, two questions, any that you found particularly interesting? And then second, any that you found particularly difficult?
I think, I mean, some of like the biggest logos I worked on were like Snowflake, Coinbase, those customers for us. And I think just knowing how much change and like regulation those companies are under and like seeing them, you know, in the news every week and then being able to be like, our platform, like this amazing platform that our product is building is allowing them to like rally their troops, like rally their groups around something that's keeping them organized so that they're checking the boxes with these, like that, like when I would kind of take a step back of like, you know, I'm uploading trial balances at 9 p.m. on a Friday night for Snowflake so that they can close out this. You take a step back and you're like, this is really like allowing these major companies that are doing really cool things for so many companies to stay under, you know, stay organized and stay, you know, on track with their controls and all that kind of stuff. So that I think was really interesting to me, like working on really big logos that are like booming at that time was really cool. But also just seeing like on the complete flip side, like FloQast can help scale any kind of tier of customer, right? So like even our small teams that were like 3 or 4 people, and you can hear almost like the pain in their voice when you're like kicking them off of like, oh my God, like my whole like 3 weeks is doing this. And you're just like, oh, like you just couldn't wait to like implement the tool for them. And then they'll come back to you and be like, oh my gosh, like we're doing everything like a week. You know, that was just super cool. So there's different, obviously, tiers of how we're impacting people. But at the end of the day, like just seeing that you are truly like helping them make a difference with our software was really, really cool. So I hate to say like I think it's hard to have like favoritism because I really do think that's the really cool thing about the platform that, you know, your company's building is that we can literally lend to anyone and everyone. So, yeah.
Okay, so doing all that work, and then you moved into management. One of the things I like to chat about is like, how does that job change? What do you think about managing versus just doing work? Like, do you enjoy one or the other? And just talk about that transition a little bit.
So yeah, kind of how I touched on earlier, like kind of being very close to documenting how to help new people in this role lended very well to like management, right? Because where we really needed management at the time was we're bringing on a lot of new consultants I think it was about every other month at that point. So being able to really take these people from public accounting, set them up for success and set them up for success quickly because the amount of customers we needed to set up was rapidly growing. So I would say the biggest thing about like kind of transitioning from, like you said, doing to managing is you just have to be aware that everyone learns differently and everyone's working style and how they're going to keep themselves organized may not be exactly how you would do it or how maybe the hire you onboarded 2 months ago did it. But at the end of the day, I'm always a believer of like kind of set out their goals and have them prove that they can do it versus like doubt them before, you know, if they're doing their work and they're doing it well, no reason to kind of like lose your trust in them. And so that was definitely a core principle in my management style. But I think just being flexible, like I don't have any kids yet, but I always hear that where like, you're not going to be able to raise the second one the same as the first one, right? It's like everyone learns differently. And when we were bringing in like large cohorts of people at once, you know, even being able to talk to a fellow manager, like, oh, how are you kind of helping this person do it? You know, kind of communicating with other managers and learning what's working for folks that they're managing is really helpful, but know that not everyone's going to be the same. I do think in public accounting, to kind of bring back like some skills that you learn from there, like very early on in public accounting, you're expected to kind of be that mentor for like the new person that joins the audit team and give very detailed, you know, review and notes to them so that they don't repeat the same mistake. And that really translates our, you know, implementation process, our implementation consultants. We hold them to a very high standard in terms of their detailed documentation. We've got a lot of systems you have to keep up to date. And so being able to kind of utilize some of that experience from audit in doing that with newer consultants was really, really helpful. And at the end of the day, like write out what they did wrong so that they have a reference when they do that process the next time. And then hopefully you're just seeing, you know, continuous improvement. But don't keep them guessing too long, but, you know, don't have trust in them as well. So I don't know if that was what you're going with. But.
No. I mean, because different people respond differently to it.
Yeah.
I can, from my own lens, I'll be blunt. I really hate managing. It's like the least favorite part of my job. I like being an individual contributor and putting my head down and getting stuff done because it's just easy. It's just me making decisions, or leading because then I can just lead and I don't have to then. So for me, a big part of my problem is the opposite of what you've been able to do. I have a hard time letting go, and I like things done my way and everything. I think that's pretty common within accounting. So it's very refreshing to hear you were able to come in with that perspective, like out the gate. And it's so true. Who cares? I don't know. If someone emails a document, says Slack's a document, like whatever, as long as the customer's set up and happy and it's done quickly, that's all that matters. And so nice. That was very mature of you to come in with that that approach out the gate. It's taken me a long time to learn. I'm not even.
I wouldn't say I'm not type A either, but we could talk about that another time.
What's your personality type on the report? You're red, right?
I'm
Extremely red. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Not all that surprised.
Yeah.
All that surprised. We do this little personality report internally, so all our employees have taken it. And then, have you retaken it yet?
Yeah. Red again.
Red again. Mm-hmm. More, less.
I think I have a little bit more of the other ones now.
Okay.
But I think I'm higher
That's
blue.
Healthy.
Because I think I'm more data driven and analytical now than I was like 3 or 4 years ago, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. Red's like the fiery, passionate, get stuff done. I'm just going to make it happen type attribute. Blue's more the I appreciate accuracy, data analytics. And I think that's an interesting combination that we have at FloQast. A lot of people are red-blue combos, which generally blue is like a more measured take on something, and then red is just like, I'm going to go with my gut and make a call right now. But balancing those, I think, is it's a tough thing to do. Yeah. But I think a really valuable thing to do. Nice. All right. And then I don't even know how we started getting in this world. How did Flo Academy start? Like, what was the genesis for that whole thing?
So I can't take full credit for starting Flo Academy. It was kind of kicked off before I stepped into this role, but definitely I would say we needed a place where customers could go and learn about our tool and get their questions answered at any time from anywhere. So how we still kind of run our implementation process is our customers have the opportunity to have a really, really impactful effective live training with our implementation consultants. And that's wonderful. It creates a relationship. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, not everyone can attend those live sessions, and not everyone prefers learning in that way. They want something that they can go to, whether it's reading, watching a video, to teach themselves, right? It's essentially how can you teach yourself on the product? How can we be one step ahead? And that's kind of how I like to think about when we broaden our Flo Academy content. How can we be one step ahead of the customer and know, like, that's a question they're probably going to answer when they're at this stage in their journey with FloQast. And that's kind of how we've built out, like, we have like a FAQ kind of quick tip library. It's like, those are those quick questions that I know that they're going to send a consultant or an ASM one day. Let's get ahead of that. So kind of having a place that ideally would answer questions from anywhere at any time that could also help our support team, right? So we have an amazing support team with a great response time, which is where people may go if they receive an error message or if they have a question, right? But Flo Academy can be something that's a little bit more, if something changed recently in the product, like, how do I now know how to use this new button, right? Like, you don't necessarily need to submit a support ticket for that. Can I go somewhere? Like, if I haven't had a call with my account manager in the last couple months, but I'm starting to see new buttons, how can I go somewhere and learn about that? Like, FloQast is rapidly evolving every single month. Which is amazing. And so at Flo Academy, we try to stay up with our product roadmap so that customers can know what are these new features, how can they lend to my process, and really just keep them coming back to be able to continue to get more and more value out of our product, because we can offer them so much more now, probably, let's just say 3 or 4 years after they implemented than when they implemented. So obviously helps with initial implementation training, but even more so with that adoption and retention, right? Like, once they're post implementation, and because our product's not going to stop evolving.
And they're going to hire people 100%. A year after we implement, so they need a good place. So it sounds like a pretty win-win thing to me. A lot of people don't want to reach out to a human to ask how they reset their password or whatever. We don't want to be going back and forth on that either. So let's just cut the time out of it. Okay. Makes sense. When did we have the idea to get some of this stuff CPE certified?
Well, Mike, that was your idea.
Was it? I forget. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go. Good job.
It was an incredible idea, but I'm not taking credit for that. That was all you, I think.
All right. Okay, sounds good. So presumably we put out some video that met the minimum
Yep.
length requirement. That it was like,
Yep.
can we get this thing certified? I know you probably don't want to talk about it because it's not fun, but what's it like working with now? What's the process for getting CPE certified, and how do you go about that?
Yeah. So, as many of us are probably familiar, things move a little slow when you're trying to get things with the NASBA, but that's fine. We essentially had to get accredited, which, don't need to go too much into the detail of that process, but just ensure that you're going to produce like legitimate content that abides by all of their criteria, which many of you are probably CPAs. You kind of are used to. You have to pass an exam and you have to have a glossary of terms and little things like that, that when we took a look at the content that we were creating, both from a product training perspective, but also things like this, like podcasts that we host with our production team and just thought leadership content, a lot of this did check the box for things that could be CPE eligible. And then I don't know who coined this phrase. I don't know if it was me or who, but then we thought of like learn and earn, right? So like learn about our product or learn about a trending topic and also earn CPE at the same time. So that felt like a no-brainer. Accountants are busy. Accountants are always looking for ways to be more efficient. So if we could help them out with requirements that they kind of legally need to have on an annual basis, while also learning about our product and learning about other topics in our industry that are valuable for both professional development, but also just being a good accountant in this space, why not? So awesome idea. We've taken it and ran with it. And so.
I think the learn and earn concept was kind of then, okay, let's brand this thing,
Yep.
Flo Academy. The name was then decided on. And then I remember Chris came to me one time. It was like, Flo Academy is awesome. This thing's a product. We need to think about it as a product because it's delivering a ton of value to the market. And that was a real like, oh yeah, we should think about this as a product. And how do we go big with it? And I'm currently looking at our Flo Academy dashboard, and it has gone very big since we decided to turn it into a product. You're up to cumulative enrollments, 54,000 enrollments in the courses that you've produced. For those not aware, or you want to explain the content like contribution strategy a little bit, how the company contributes to it. And I mean, today you get 242 courses in Flo Academy. And I got a call from my buddy on Monday saying he got everything done for free, active. He's in Oregon, so he has to take 32 credits, but he was very excited that for better or for worse, he had to listen to me talk for 32 hours, but he got all his credits for free.
Yeah. So as Mike said, we have around 200 plus courses at this point. What kind of goes into our content creation? We have kind of a village that contributes to all of our content. So a big chunk of that is obviously product training. And that is kind of handled by our customer education team. We work in lockstep with our product team to ensure that any new feature, any new product is reflected in a training course in Flo Academy. So product training, we'll call that one piece of it. Secondly, many of you maybe have attended some of our webinars. So marketing spins up quite a few webinars. Sometimes those are in partnership with one of our consulting partners. Sometimes those are in partnership with a product manager from FloQast, maybe another thought leader expert. And so we make sure that all of our webinars are taken from that live format into an on-demand format in Flo Academy, and then folks can earn CPE if they were not able to attend that webinar live. Third, we have FloQast Studios here. So kind of like podcasts like this, we are always thinking about new ways to kind of create continuous content or even have one-off conversations like we did with Kelly Pope last year and kind of try to think of more, one-of-a-kind, unique type content that we would want to hold ourselves to a pretty high standard in terms of production quality. So that's where we'll kind of bring in studios. And then we obviously have just kind of a new blossoming initiative is working with some of our partners, right? And trying to have conversations with them on what they're doing in their space and how we can work better together and get that into some really, really engaging content for everyone in our academy. So there's about like four big pillars, I would call it. And definitely some overlap, definitely can kind of tell stories to our customers by, hey, learn about this with our product, and then go listen to a customer talk about it in a webinar, and then go listen to, a podcast where we're talking about a related current event. So it's kind of a community of content that I like to think of supports each other and not like necessarily all standalone.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's so well-rounded. You can learn about the product. You can learn about technical accounting through a lot of the webinars and partner work, and then industry and just like out there stuff through a lot of the FloQast Studios content. I do want to give a quick plug to, we just released the Fraud Files, which is an audio story podcast form about a fraud case, which was written by Kelly Richmond Pope, one of our partners. She did an awesome job. Whole team did a great job, and it has rocketed up to, I love the dashboard with Flo Academy. It is the 5th most completed course now, 5th most enrolled course in our library already. So great job, Studios team, and I would highly recommend listening to that one. Yours truly, I'm one of the voice actors in the first episode. I don't know if you caught that, but I play a golfer, which is pretty straightforward. So how big is the team now?
We've got 3 folks on the education team, likely to grow this year. But we kind of structure it where we have an instructional designer, Anna. She's awesome. I really challenge my team, especially when you're running like a small and lean team, is we do continually adopt like new technology that makes our jobs easier and us able to do things more efficiently. So we use a lot of kind of AI-based tools for captioning, video creation, things like that. Because the biggest thing, like I mentioned, FloQademy has a responsibility to stay on top of our product roadmap. And as you know, we're releasing things every single week. So, we always remind ourselves we can continue to build and build and build, but then you have to maintain that content as well, which is just as hard, if not harder. So any tools that we can adopt to make those updates and changes as efficient as possible, we do. So Anna's great. I call her just kind of our content master. And then we have Cynthia, who kind of helps with, overseeing that and building any kind of higher level strategies. So like localization is something huge that we're working on, obviously here at FloQast and also for Flo Academy, so that we can be more widely used internationally. Working on just some new certifications and maybe bringing in an AI certification, accounting operations certification, and how do we actually, now we've been around for 2 years, we may need to start renewing people's certifications. So maybe something they received 2 years ago may be up for renewal. So working on that strategy and and then I kind of oversee it all and kind of from a public perspective, what we want to do with it. And
Wow, the first wave of renewals coming up is,
I know.
That's a cool milestone. There's something nerdy and cool about that.
Yeah.
One of the other decisions was, so it started because it was product learning. It started as a customer focused thing. Over time, we opened that up. So can you tell me more about how that impacted the strategy of the product and just kind of how things changed when we opened up to the public?
Yep. So been open to the public now, probably like 7, 8, 9 months. It was September. Yeah. And that strategy was, we're creating all of this really unique, creative CPE content. Like, how can we impact the broader accounting space? And also, even if you're not a CPA or not a CPA yet, a lot of this content is really valuable for a rising accountant or someone that's just looking to improve their professional development in the accounting or finance space. So why not open this up and offer it for free to the greater community? So that was definitely one of our missions or goals in that strategy. And then secondly, we have obviously a ton of prospects and opportunities that we're constantly, engaging with. And how can we have more of a brand home base for them where they can engage with, thought leadership content, engage with demos, take a look at webinars that we're hosting and being able to have another channel that they can kind of be a part of FloQast as they're working through that prospecting journey. It's been a really, really interesting and rewarding process to work closer with marketing and sales and kind of continually brainstorm. We're by no means perfect yet today, but just continually brainstorm, like, how can Flo Academy be pivotal in the way that we market to our customers, but also our prospects? And then say from a sales perspective, like, how can we leverage engagement metrics in Flo Academy to have a more engaging conversation with the prospect? So continually evolving on that strategy, but I was definitely the right call to open it up to the public and figure out how to get it in front of more people.
Well, back to the dashboard. Within the first quarter of opening up to the public, we doubled the amount of courses completed within that quarter. That's it just completely took off. And yeah, I mean, we're here to elevate accounting.
Yep.
To forever elevate accounting. And I think putting this stuff out there really helps with the field. And My experience taking CPEs, I'm sure you're going to agree with me. They were super boring,
Yep.
took forever, and then not cheap either.
Not cheap. Yep.
Yeah, surprising how much you have to pay for it. So I apologize to the CPE industry, but we think it's important to support accountants here and help them do it at a better price point. So.
Yep. Very, very fair point.
Yeah. What do you think, what's next for Flo Academy?
I think kind of in terms of opening it up to the public, I think I'm really excited about just like the way in which we can broaden our content library. So if we think about all of these wonderful partners that we work with, like how can we have conversations with these people that are true experts in certain areas of the space where FloQast is such a complementary product in that process and almost financial transformation, if you will, that, you know, our prospects or customers are going through, and how can we just create really good content that is going to support all of the people in our community. And I think of that as like our customers and prospects, like do their job better and do it more efficiently. And how is technology disrupting, but also like aiding our space? Like how can we just help be a home for people to learn more about that? And so when I think of Flo Academy, I think of we can be like a platform and a home where people can go and have a one-stop shop to learn about all of those really important topics, no matter what industry you're in. And with that, like from a FloQast perspective, right? Like if we broaden the topics that we're offering, we can see everyone that's interested in that content. And then whether they're a customer, not a customer, we have all of these teams that are so excited to just talk with new people that are coming into our Flo Academy database, whether they're looking to buy FloQast, not looking to buy FloQast, or already a customer. So it's just a great way to kind of see how people can engage with our brand and allow us to have more educated and effective conversations with those people in our community to see kind of based on kind of what they're engaging with in our platform. So I definitely think going bigger and broader with our public content is definitely kind of what's coming, and kind of utilizing that as a more effective top of funnel marketing channel for us as a company is definitely I would say one of our top goals right now. And then I mentioned this briefly earlier. I think for our customers, really, really excited just to make more, kind of invest more in learning accessibility. So whether that's with like captioning or being able to change the language with the click of a button, or choose if you want to read this in text format versus video. You know, I've mentioned this several times, everyone learns differently. So if we can be more flexible as a learning platform, it's going to keep people coming back, and a customer is going to know, like, I can go there and get what I need in any way that I need it. And, you know, in turn, that's going to help our customer success goals of adoption and retention and things like that. So I'd say those are probably the two things. Yeah, go big on the content and kind of market it well. And secondly, yeah, get this out internationally. So two big goals, but I think we're making progress.
Yeah. Totally. No, I completely agree on the consulting side. We have all these great implementation consultants, and they're true experts in their field. I think bringing them in is going to be really awesome. Some great content around that. And we're up to about 12,000 enrolled students. Can we get that to 100? How do we do?
Yeah.
How do we make that happen?
We're at about, I think it was like 25,000 have access. You're right. About 12,000 have enrolled. I think the biggest thing.
Welcome to the world of working with me. We're at 12. How do we get to 100?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with converting and kind of what Mike's speaking to is, right, you have this education platform. You're going to have a ton of people that log in. Not all of those people that log in are going to enroll in the course. And how do you get that percentage higher? I will say, I think it's being really strategic on how you're marketing the tool. So like, obviously everyone's going to become aware of, and this is specifically for our customer segment, right? So for customers, they're going to learn about Flo Academy and their implementation. But hey, maybe they're going to attend a live training and maybe they didn't necessarily have a question come up. When you're strategically marketing it to our customers in the life cycle, right? Like, are they 2 years down the line? Are they 3 years down the line? Making sure the way in which you're marketing Flo Academy makes sense for either like a pain point that they're having or like the value that they're looking for. So specifically, if like we can utilize data on like adoption, right? So if someone is struggling to use a certain product and we have data around that and they're like, barely clicking into this, like how can we then surface Flo Academy content that will help them adopt that better? Oh, hey, I actually have this product. I bought it because of X. I'm not using it. Why am I not using it? Remind them of the value of why they bought this specific segment of our product. And and give them FloQademy content for it, right? So like think ahead of like what pain point or maybe perhaps value are they missing out on, and like utilize FloQademy as a tool to get them to adopt that well and retain them on that. It also, I'm really excited about, I was just chatting about someone earlier today, FloQademy can also become a home for more like live conversations as well. So when we think about talking regarding our product roadmap or like why did our product team build this certain feature, let's host a live conversation in FloQademy.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Have people come and be like, actually get to hear a product manager talk about what the pain is that we were trying to solve with this. Yes, not everyone may not be able to attend live, but then host that recording on FloQademy. So we're doing something around that next week on Wednesday around AI. So I have like 3 product managers coming, and they're going to talk about like, and it's going deeper than just providing like a demo of our product, but take it back to like, what was the pain we saw our customers were having? What is the value? Like, why did we build this? Like, how Chris has his product team work, right? Like before you build a thing, you got to figure out the pain is. What is the value we're going after? Okay, yes, you can go build it, you know? So have them explain that story a little bit and have customers be able to be there, ask questions. So anyways, I think bringing in a little bit of a live element to FloQademy would be really cool, and think bigger than just like replacing live training. Like have it be more like live roundtables with product involved or even marketing or whatever it may be. So that I think, again, back to your strategy in terms of how you market to people in the life cycle needs to be, think about the pain point they may be having, or like what's value that they're looking at of our software and how FloQademy can kind of be embedded into that. I think will help a lot of those that have logged in, but maybe haven't actually taken a course because maybe they've already mastered the core app and they're like, oh, I don't need to learn anything anymore, you know? So I will say though, our completion rate is way above benchmark because of how, you know, they take our content, specifically around the CPE, they'll take our content and then we have I think it's like 80% or it's always like high 70s around they actually complete it, which is good. So yeah.
No, and you've been able to hold pretty consistent while adding to the library, which in my head, I would be like, oh, that should fall off because it might be lower quality as you expand the volume. But no, you've done a great job doing it. I love the live roundtable idea. I've been in so many pieces of software where I'm like, why the hell did they do it that way? And then it would be nice to hear the answer. Maybe there's probably a good reason why they did it. Maybe there's not, and they're totally incompetent, and that is. But it'd be nice to hear like why different product decisions were made.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this was awesome. Do you mind if I just take a minute to like lob some praise onto you before we wrap it up? It's been great talking to you. You're such an impressive person at FloQast. Like you're so good at customer support, obviously accounting, but then like just general business knowledge. It's super impressive. And I don't know if you have fully processed it, but you know, you majored in accounting, you're going to do accounting, but at the end of the day, you've had a really big impact on the profession already, like with the number of customers you helped and then helping our people ramp up to help more customers. And now with everything you're doing, I mean, you are literally helping 12,000 accountants right now, like at least, if not more. So that's something very cool. You should be very proud of that. And we're very fortunate to have you at FloQast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great conversation. Love to chat anytime. Thanks for having me and excited to see what we're going to continue to do.
Likewise. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We hope you get your CPE credits for this podcast and hope you enjoyed. Thank you.